Hi there, my name is Dan Gallagher. So welcome back for those of you who are doing some more of these webinars. Today's webinar is in relation to ISO 45000 and what does it say exactly in relation to auditing and how to do audits. You're going to see the requirement for audits in any ISO standard. And in actual fact, there's an ISO standard on how to do audits. And what we hope to do here is just share with you an approach that comes in. And we'll show you some of the challenges as well around looking at ISO standards and trying to interpret them. So let's get started. I'm just going to move myself out of the way over here. So what we have over here is just some of the elements we're going to choose. We look at what are the other elements briefly. We'll go through then and look specifically at the clauses. It's in clause 9 where ISO 45000 mentions that you have to do audits. There's a bonus download as well. So anybody going to the webinar will have a chapter from my ebook on auditing. So we go through again and we actually share templates with you for how to do audits. We're also going to go through, just use a tool we have as our own company software tool called the My Audit module. And I'm going to work through an audit again with you. So by the time we work through an example, and in this case, we're going to audit the standard, and we're going to look at what the standard asks and just have a look at maybe say, well, how would you fare yourself? Some questions at the end. So while this is an on-demand webinar, you can still put comments and queries in the box on the side, and we will respond back to you. And finally, we'll have questions at the end, and thank you as well. So without further ado, the information here is just for information purposes only, not to be construed as advice. I'd be delighted to link in with you if you are on LinkedIn, or just send an email to dan@checknetwork.com as well. Just one note about ISO standards. I suppose if you look at them, if you go to stay in a hotel, for example, and a hotel has a fire suppression system, and there were two hotels. One of them, they said the fire suppression system was certified to an ISO standard, and the other one wasn't. Why would you go to the hotel, or which one would you choose? Probably the ISO standard. It just means that that system has been put in to a recognized standard and it's probably been tested and checked out. Whereas a hotel that doesn't have a system put in to a recognized standard probably or may not have been installed initially, it mightn't be checked. So they give us guidance notes for how to do things. And just incidentally, ISO 45000 is the standard for occupational health and safety. ISO 14000 is the one for environmental and so forth. And as of April 2022, the ISO had developed over 24,261 standards. So ISO 45000 is just one of them. They specify requirements, but they don't tell you how to do things. And that's exactly the challenge. Okay, and that's what we're going to look at today. So when you look at standard, there are 10 clauses typically since about 2015. All the different standards, 9,000 for quality, 14,000 environment, 22,000 food safety, and so forth. All these standards were realigned because they all had similar clauses, but they had different numbers, different sequences. So they all came in, they were put into 10-point format. And what you have here is from clause 4 to 10. I didn't put in the numbers because it just gets too complex, but the key elements are inside there. And you can see that internal audit is mentioned. So without further ado, I'm actually just going to pull up here what the standard wants and what is specifically inside here. And if you have a copy of the ISO standard, you'll see here, come down to clause 9.2. I said the 10 sections. The first 3 sections are kind of introduction, scope, and so forth. The business end of it really starts in clause 4. We're jumping all the way down to clause 9.2 specifically. And let's have a read of it. So what I'm going to do is just read the clause here. Then I'm going to show you the bonus for you, which is a chapter in the ebook where we're going to interpret it. And then we go through a worked example. But maybe just keep in mind as we go through here, would you know from this exactly, if this is your first time looking at an ISO standard and you haven't seen them before, would you be able to kind of figure out your own procedure or not inside? So the first clause here is 921 internal audit objectives, and it says the organization, basically just move myself out of the way, your organization shall conduct internal audits at planned intervals. So you have to plan, if you like, at the start of the year in January, so many audits that you're going to do in the course of the year, and provide information on whether your own occupational health and safety management system, OHS, because we're in, as I said, ISO 45000, It'll be very similar for any other standard then. And we want to check if our auditing process conforms to our own requirements for its management system. Okay. And obviously we need to have a procedure inside here to say what our own requirements are, and then are we following our own procedure and the requirements of the standard, and that's what we're looking at now. And we want to check as well that our internal audits that are being done, are they being effectively implemented and maintained? Now, anybody who does audits, the first thing they'll tell you is, you can end up doing a lot of them yourself, but really, and a lot of them you plan the year, but they slipped, and sometimes you're trying to condense a lot of them in by year end, and really they become just a paper exercise at that stage. They have to be planned and mapped out effectively. And to do that, you have a couple of players involved. One of them, I suppose, is one person is called the auditor, and the person they go and meet is the auditee. Okay, so the person who's being audited is the auditee. And the two key things are, if you have a group of auditors together, then they, among themselves, they have to nominate a lead auditor. And then the lead auditor has got the ultimate responsibility for the final outcome. They would then present, they go through the process, and at the end, they present their findings to the manager or the process owner of a particular department. So we have the auditor with the lead auditor. If you're on your own, you are the lead auditor. If there's a team, you have to nominate one. And you're going and meeting the auditees. And ultimately, the process manager, process owner, or the process manager has to be involved in the process, because it's their area of accountability being done. So what does it say over here? Are we any clearer in terms of what's been looked at for? Well, it says you must plan your audits. Okay, good thing. Fail to plan, the thing, if you can plan to fail, the reverse of it, that old adage. You must basically establish a procedure, you must implement the procedure, and you must maintain a procedure inside here. So some program for doing it: plan, establish, implement, and maintain. And you must determine how frequently you do audits, the methodology you follow. And obviously there is a methodology we look, and that'll hopefully be on the ebook chapter as well, that you can adapt. The responsibilities for doing the audit. So I mentioned a while ago, we have the auditor, the auditee, the lead auditor, the process owner, process manager side there as some of the key ones. The planning requirements. You can't just arrive and do an audit on top of people are busy and stuff. So you have to plan out, and normally there's a group of people involved. Equally, for the person being audited, they want to get some value back out of the process as well. They don't want to be just having a paper exercise coming through. And so we want to come in and plan, what are we going to be checking exactly inside while we're doing it. And then, of course, by the time we do all of this, there's going to be a report at the end. So we have to take all of the information that's been gathered during the audit and then present it in the format of a report that we can hand over to the process owner, the process manager. And we must so while we're doing all this, then, okay, we shall take into consideration the importance of the processes concerned, what it is we're auditing, to the management system, and look at performance evaluation outcomes and the results of previous audits. Particularly the last line there, that's a really important one, because before we start doing an audit today, so let's just say we're going into a laboratory and we're auditing the training records in laboratory, but there was already an audit done last year on training records in laboratory. We need to check what was found and what's still outstanding from last year before we go in and continue the new one. We must have a defined criteria. What are we checking? A scope. So in this case, if we're auditing the auditing process, we'd be auditing clause 9.2, 9.21 and 9.22 specifically as well. And the scope then we would clearly define. So coming through. The next one coming through, then we must select auditors, conduct audits to ensure objectivity and impartiality. So basically, our people shouldn't audit their own department, their own processes. It's just not good practice. So it's good for you to go to a different department you're less familiar with and bring somebody else in. Interesting, some of the things that, the good things that can happen here is you might have somebody in the quality department who doesn't know much about health and safety, and you might have somebody in health and safety who hasn't been trained so much on the process about doing audits. And if you put the two of these people together, then they can kind of cross-pollinate and learn from each other. So we don't want to audit ourselves, okay? and we want people who are impartial in the process overall. You must ensure that the results of the audits are reported to relevant management and other persons, and you must retain documented information as evidence of the implementation of the audit program. So we have to have some record at the end, because as when we are at the beginning, we have to plan the audit. We have to know how many audits we're going to do in the year. If you remember a while ago, we looked at the clauses of the standard. Well, we should typically cover all of the clauses of the standard each year. And then we should look at our whole facility and make sure that we can, over a period of maybe 2 to 3 years, you audit all of the clauses in all of your facility on a rolling basis. So you can kind of set up a plan like that to go forward. So over here, I said, if you look back at what it's telling you, there's a lot of, you shall do things, okay? We shall do this and the auditor shall do that. But the biggest thing is it's not necessarily telling you how. It's not giving you a form. It's not giving you a piece of paper. And that's hopefully what I want to help you with now as well. So the bonus here is just a chapter in the ebook that you can go through. As I said, put questions in the comments, put anything inside, any feedback you want after as well. I would be happy to help. So coming down here, we just have an introduction about audits and so forth. But as you come down here, we start off, and the way I like to look at it is, I suppose, the audit plan. Okay, we want to plan the audit. What are we going to do? And the first thing is, what type of audit are we going to do? Okay, in this case, are we going to audit training records in a particular area? Are we going to audit roles and responsibilities somewhere else? We have to decide, okay? So we give things like a reference number type. So you can go through this detail in yourself, but the first one is the type of audit and, and the scope. The second one, if we think of the reporter's questions, the what, the why, the when, the where, okay, the who. And of course, so we have the W's and the how, and the how is a W and how. So let's have a look at the process. So the how we're looking at, which is the methodology. But the reporter's questions are start that what are we doing? When will we do it? Okay, so we have a plan, and that's obviously key for everything. We have to plan out our audits. Where will we do it? Okay, that's the key then. So the location, and then who's going to be involved as well is the next one. Who's going to do it? And as I said already, we have the players already, the auditor and the auditee. Now, as we go through the process, we start off, if you like, in the ideal world, you plan out your audits in January. You have a certain number in February, March, April, May, and you plan them out over the year and try to spread them out over different areas and so forth. But we want to then go through the year and know how many audits are still planned and how many have actually been completed, and maybe as well how many have been, how many are still in progress as well. So we want to go through and we want to have the status of the audit, and we might even put in scores, even though sometimes we probably might have scores pertaining to housekeeping inspections, but we can do this in audits. ISO audits tend to be more black and white. You're kind of complying or you're not. It's more yes and no. So, but for other audits, you might go in and you might have different scoring systems. So the next thing we want to do, and this is just where you have a piece of paper, before you go do your audit, you basically have to think of the questions. What are we going to ask inside? Now, to be honest, in year one, when you're doing your ISO audit, it's pretty easy. These are the questions. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. I'm going to turn you shall do that into do you do this? Do you do that? Have you planned? Have you established? Have you implemented? So in a moment, we'll have a look at how I've taken that and turned it in. In the flip side of the coin here is if I was writing my manual, I would actually just say, we do conduct audits, okay? We do conform to the requirements. We do effectively manage and implement them. We do plan, we do establish, we do maintain them, we write reports. So our manual and our procedure are saying we're doing, but then when we're coming to the audit, which is what we're talking about today, we're saying, are we doing it? Okay, so we're just checking inside there. So year one, it's kind of easy because you just kind of come in, we take the clause, we turn it into yes and no. But to be honest, in year two of any management system, you've kind of done it in year one. So the procedure will still be there next year. So we have to move on to a slightly different phase. So what I just state to you there is you need to have an audit scribble sheet that you write down your findings, give you just different columns. So you could have basically the clause in the first column. Okay. Then your own comments as you go through, and you want to write down the questions. So if you're doing something that isn't ISO, okay, I'll give you some tips here in terms of how could you do a good audit? Even if you don't know the topic, here are some ways. Think of the reporter's questions. Ask, why is this important? I'm doing an audit on training records in the laboratory. What training was done? Why did you do the training? Where was the training done? Who did the training? Okay, how was it done? So without knowing anything, we can ask good questions inside there. So we want to come up with a series of questions, because a good audit is all about preparation, getting the job done. Okay, and we want to make sure we arrive and we can ask questions. Now, equally, it doesn't mean that we have to go through every single question. The idea is that we're checking the system, and a lot of the time we have questions, there'll be good answers. We'll find the information, but sometimes we'll get some information might be missing, and we're going to basically end up with an audit finding. And that's what we call here, it's like a non-conformance. So what I want to do with the audit finding is we want to take that, and then we want to make sure there's a certain action put in place to address the finding, to close it off. Sometimes when we go through audits, we see some great things. We see some things, we say, wow, that was good, and we might note it. Now, we might also say, you know what, there's an opportunity for an improvement here. So it's not always negative, but most people probably look at audits and say, yeah, you're out to catch me. And there's a degree that, and sometimes auditors feel pressure that they have to get so many findings, stuff like that. But by nature, there'll always be some improvement probably found. So we want to go through the process. We want to have our questions asked. And as you have the answers, you'll be scribbling down. But this scribble sheet will be your own piece of paper. That's your own sheet, okay? We'll have to interpret that later on then when we go to write up the audit report, okay? So on it, if you know nothing about topic, where, what, why, when, who, how, and then ask questions about people, process, product, place. Okay, that they could be another 4. So we're giving you 10 questions here that you could use to talk about anything inside there. Once we go through, you're having lots of good questions, good dialogue, listen, okay? And that's the hard thing doing the audit as well. Listen to what people say, get the responses. We want to go through then, and we want to extract the relevant information out and move on to the audit report, okay? And that's where the next thing we go through is prepare that. And overall, we want to make a determination. We want to say, well, you know what? Overall, the procedure that's here, it does comply with the standard, or no, it doesn't, and there are gaps, okay? So we have to make a call, and the team do it, or you as I have to say, are we good or bad? Okay, that's kind of the gist of it. So the next one are the strengths, and you can talk this again, the overall summary is free text. The strengths will be the positive side, and the areas for improvement is the other one. And then we have corrective actions and observations. So corrective actions, if we have an area for improvement, we then would expect an action in place, and we have some observations as well. And of course, then we have a sign-off process as well. So typically the sign-off is by the manager, and we also want the lead auditor to be involved. So hopefully you've seen there that we've kind of taken a little bit of a jump from here, okay, into this one. I just want to share with you something else now as well. I'm just going to look at how we might actually in practice maybe do it. So what I'm going to look at here is we have a software tool called the My Audit module. So I'm going to use that as well to kind of move off the paper-based and show you how we're going to audit the clauses about auditing the standard and go through that there. So in this case, look, we're going to go through. I've put in a title of the audit. So the title of the audit is Audit of the Auditing Process. Okay, just a bit of a mouthful there. And the only other things I do over here then is I'm just going to put it in a planned date that we're going to do the audit. I then put in the scope, and the scope in this case is to ensure compliance with clause 9.2 of ISO 45001. Incidentally, just as a thank you for watching this, everybody who comes in, there's a registration link at the end. If you want your free license for one to use the auditing module, there's one at the end that you can claim as well. So you can come in and you can actually repeat what I'm doing yourself on the system as well. So that's your other bonus as well. So that license is worth €299. So please, as I said, make use of it inside there. The other thing over here is we have the audit type. So in this case, I'm doing an audit, clause 9.2. I put in my location, so I'm going to say, make it somewhere nice like Dijon in France. And over here, then we have the operation, the department where I'm going to do it. So again, the when, okay, the what is here, the where is here. Now I'm going to look at who are we auditing. So again, in this case, I'm coming in, I'm going to say, yeah, I'm auditing Tony. And who is the auditor? Well, the auditor is the Bill. So Bill is coming into Tony. Who is the lead auditor? Well, the lead auditor overall here is Brian as well. So there's two auditors. If he was on his own, he would be the lead auditor. And because there's two, one of them has to be nominated as the lead. And the departmental manager, why is that important? Well, the departmental manager is important because ultimately that person is responsible for everything that happens in his or her department. So look, pretty easy at the start. We're in a planned phase. Okay, so we're planning on doing this. So I might have dates in January, February, March, April, May, June, and going forward like that. Now, with the overall audit summary and the strengths, I'm going to come back to this in a while because I have to do the audit first. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look at my questionnaires. I have two clauses that I want to do, 9.1, 9.2. And the first one, if you remember the standard, it was the organization shall and go forth like that, okay? Over here then as well, it says, does the organization conduct audits and make sure at regular intervals provide information on whether our management system conforms to our own requirements? So I'm going to say, yeah, we're following our procedure pretty well. Does it conform to the requirements of the standard? I might go through the rest of the audit first and then come back and answer that question. Okay, I might do 9.2 first and come back. And is it effectively implemented and maintained? Again, because this is early on, I might wait before I've kind of gone through the audit before I make a determination there on these ones. Just so now I'm going to say, yes, it is, because I know, say, we have a good procedure, it's working well, and the audits are, we don't anticipate any major issue. Now, as I go through this process over here, I can record findings or opportunities for improvement. So that's just a note, but I'm just going to move on now to clause 2 for a moment. And what we have under clause 2 is the internal audit program. Is it maintained? Yeah, well, how would I check that? Easy. I get records from last year, the year before, maybe go back 2 or 3 years, ask for samples of your records inside there. That's where you go in. Is it planned? Well, yeah, I want to see, show me the audit plan for the next 6 to 12 months. Is it being implemented? Look for the evidence. And has the program been established as well? So again, we're looking at, and we'll be looking for the procedures, the forms. A form is the blank form that you'd have in the procedures, like in the ebook I'm giving you. And then when a form has information entered on it, it becomes the record. Okay. So over here, does the internal audit improve the frequency? And typically you want to audit all the clauses of your standard once a year. Okay, maybe all the clauses in all areas, maybe on a 3-year period, but all the clauses at least once a year. Now, if we did an audit and we found there was an area that was struggling or was particularly poor, we could very well just stop there and come back again in 3 months. So we might increase the frequency in the problematic areas and so forth. Okay, does it include the methodology? Okay, so have we defined it? So again, like if you take what I gave you in the ebook and just convert that into your own internal procedure, that's your own process and your methodology. Does it include the responsibilities for doing it? So that's the auditor, the lead auditor, the auditee at a minimum inside there, and then the process owner, process manager. Does it include planning requirements? And also, does it include reporting? So again, I want to go through and just note these things and say, yes, they are. Now, in this case, I'm going to come down and I want to note one other thing then that's important. Before we start any audit, there's a section up here, okay, that says, are there any outstanding items from a previous one? So I mentioned this already. And what we do here is we check this type of audit, which is on clause 9.2, and the location, which is deeded on. And we say, well, okay, have we already done one last year? And if we did, and there were still issues open from last year, we would see them here. The idea why we want that on the system is we don't want to come in and find we had issues reported last year, and then we come in again this year to do the audit and we're reporting again. So now we've kind of double entry on the same work here. So that's a really important part before we start the audit up there. So coming down here, then we want to say does the process cover the importance of the processes that we're auditing? Okay. Are we doing any performance evaluation outcomes in terms of that? One of the key things, the status levels we're looking at here as we go through is we have the planned audit, we have the in progress phase, we then have the audit complete and we're closed. So I'm going to just move my audit schedule to, I'm going to start it, just move myself out of the way again there. I'm going to say, I'm going to say just here, or start it on time as well, because a lot of the time we'd actually plan to do an audit on 15th of February, but we mightn't get around to for a week or two because and that's absolutely fine. The problem you'd have in certain cases, though, is if you have lots of audits that were planned and you just kept missing the date, that's kind of a symptom to an external auditor that you don't have the process under control, and you're not giving it the attention that it needs as well. So be careful on that one. So coming through over here, we want to just come back into the, so my audit is now going through, we're in progress. We're going to say yes. Have we looked at the results of previous audits? I'll come down here and say yes. Now, over here, there's the organization define the audit criteria and scope for each audit. So as I said, when we're doing ISO, we're going to say, we go back to the clauses and we look specifically at it. When we move away from ISO, we're looking at, you have to make up the questions, and questions about where, what, when, why, who, how, people, product, process, place. I'm going to say no in this case. Okay, I'm going to say that we haven't defined the audit criteria scope for all situations. So I'm going to come in over here and I'm going to record a finding, and my finding is the audit criteria for each audit has not been defined for non-ISO audits. Just going to give a just an example here, just for a second. So if you like, that's my issue over here. What I want to do over here now is I want to come in and I want to log that, which I've done. Okay, but the next thing I want to do over here is I want to put a corrective action in place. So I have a finding, which is like an issue, and I want to come over here and I want to put in an action, because if you like over here, I want to get this fixed coming down. So if I just move myself out of the way again up here. So I want to get a job done, and my corrective action request is to amend the audit procedure, okay, to include, if you like, the audit criteria and scope for each audit. So inside there, just going to come up with this. Now, I've come up with an action I want to fix the audit finding. The next thing I want to do over here is, if I don't assign this action to somebody, it's not going to get done. Okay, we have the two tools and stuff like that, and who does it is that person does it. So when I come in here, I want to assign it, and it's always one action, one person. So I'm going to come in over here, I'm going to assign that action to Bill. Okay, so Bill is going to be there. Now the next thing I want to do is look at it. Okay, when does Bill have to do this by? And if I don't give a time frame, then Bill can't do this on time. Okay, so we want one job, one person, one time frame, and that's the critical thing with corrective actions. So, and the corrective action thing here, while we're doing it as part of the audit, corrective actions has its own clause, and we'll cover that in another webinar as well. So look out for that one. So over here, I'm going to give it a categorization. So how critical is it? Well, immediate might be an overkill, like critical. So you have to, within your procedure for corrective actions, give them weightings. I'm going to say, look, this is important. We have an audit coming up soon. I want this done fairly fast, so I'm going to put it in high, but it might be medium or low. It's up to me. I have to determine how critical this is. So if you can see over here, that gives me 14 days from the date. I'm in January, that's February, and it's going to come in. And I want to put this in over here. So if we have 100 corrective actions on the system, we want to look at it and kind of group them and say, well, maybe 10% are due to lack of training, 15% are lack of maintenance, 20% lack of PP, something like that. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say this is actually a documentation issue purely and only, and that's what it is. So I can come in over here, and I'll, of course, when I'm inside in my action, just like this, I now have one action inside. I do want to maybe immediately send an email to Bill and tell him to get it done, pop it up, and we get Bill, and I can put in a note on the email, hey Bill, we have an audit next week, please get this done fast as well. So Bill is going to get that, and it's going to be in progress. And sometimes we'll cover this in the auditing one, but sometimes I want to keep a rolling log over here of what's happening up to the point that we're going to complete this action. This action is going to be in progress to the 8th of February. If it's not done by the 8th of February, it's going to become overdue. and then hopefully it's going to be complete. And if it's completed after the 8th of February, it's completed late as well at that stage. So that's what I want to do there. So if I come back in over here, I now have an audit finding, and I've gone on, in this case, I put on the corrective action. You could, in certain cases, just leave the finding and let the corrective actions be done by the manager. But just for the example here, I'm just going to just go through and just show an example. The next one is, does the organization select auditors and conduct to ensure objectivity and impartiality? And I'm going to go through here and say yes. In this case, I might want to come through and do record something else, but in this case, it's not a negative. It's actually a positive. A commenter could be an opportunity for improvement. So in this case, I'm going to record something, but I'm going to say there's no need for follow-up. Okay, I might say that when I was auditing another facility last week, I saw they did it this way. You should check out this on the web because it's really good. Okay, but it's not a negative. You don't have to do it. So I'm going to come down over here and say all auditors inside there, they say are IRCA certified, something like that. So that's a kind of, it's like a real positive, and I'm going to put that note in there. Now, what I want to do down below here is I want to close out that one. Come down here. Does the organization share the results of audits reported to the relevant manager? Well, we need an audit report. And again, in the handout I've given you, you have a template for that, which I hope is useful. And also, does the organization retain documented information as evidence of the audit program and audits? Again, if you have the report, hopefully it's been filed. And there's a whole clause in ISO anyway about documentation and document control and records management inside there. So I'm going to say yes, it is. So just at a very simple level. Okay, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to look at my, if you like, my findings are over here. Okay, that was my finding. If you remember, auditors are IRCA certified. And if you remember over here when I said the scope hasn't been defined, down below here then I put in a corrective action in place. So I want to have my findings here. I want to have my opportunities or comments inside here, and I want my corrective actions all within easy reach. And down below here then I'll come to a point. I'm going to say I have to make a determination over the overall procedure. And in that case, actually, you might be putting in your procedure HSP 045, whatever this guy complies with clause 9 of ISO 45001. So we can say that it is a good project. We're calling it. We're happy with that. The positives, again, some strength might be the attitude. Sorry, just make that one. Sorry, not my typing. Attitude of staff. The other one might be record keeping. That might be some of the positive things that we noticed as we enter on. Now, we've done the questionnaire, but if you can imagine now, we've had the overall summary, we've the strengths, the shake up then from going through the questionnaire. We've come down here, we've done the questionnaire, and now what we want to do is we want to come in, we see our findings, opportunities, and here. I can then move to a point where I'm going to complete the audit, okay, and over here. And what would happen then afterwards is when when I complete the audit over here, then we want to close it. And typically what's going to happen at the closure stage, when you're coming in to do an audit, is you will have the lead auditor saying, I'm happy, report is done, and you'll have the departmental manager, he or she then has to countersign it, and the audit will move over here and we can close it. In between, of course, we have to explain to the manager what it was. So when you write these audit reports and everything like that, you have to ensure that they're written basically for the benefit of somebody who hasn't been there. Okay, so, and you want language that's black and white, no ambiguity. They have to understand why you're there, why you're taking up valuable resources and time in our department. We're busy, why are we doing that? So make it super clear. Audits are critical, we have to do them. Okay, and the purpose of it and what you did, what you found. And we want to get pretty quickly to the main point over here, which is, we're in here, this is the audit, this we found, this is the date, auditor, auditee, and so forth. Overall, we're in a good position. Down below here, after staff record keeping, then we have the findings, the opportunities, corrective actions. We can, of course, look at the information, the questionnaires as well. And down below here, had we signed it off, we would see the signatures. In that case, we can print it, go off, and hopefully the audit will be closed. We will have a parallel system coming out of here as well. We'll be looking at all of the corrective actions as well. Corrective actions We'll want to see how many actions are in progress, how many are complete, how many are overdue. That's a hugely important part of the engine over here, and we can look at our different people and our team. So as I said, watch out the separate one about managing non-conformities and corrective actions. And also, of course, within the audit process itself, we do want to come through, and we want to keep an eye on the audits as well. The key thing with audits is looking at the plan, how many of them are kind of in progress, complete, and stuff like that. You don't want the overdue ones to be building up. You really want to keep on top and get them rescheduled if that's the case. So that's kind of that's it. So I hope between the handbook over here that I'm giving you, which is this part and the template on paper, and of course you have the forms down here as well. Okay, you can go through that, and hopefully with that you have a license. As I said, it's a license. It's not going to be cancelled. You have a license, and for that, so there's details at the end how to claim that. Go through, and you can see you can do what I was just doing there in the sandbox account even, and play around, even if you just want to learn the process of auditing as well. So going through that's another really important one as well. And just recapping, as I said, hopefully you can see that ISO systems are great. Okay, they're very, very good. They give a lovely structure, but they don't tell you how, and it's the interpretation. It's how we interpret and keep things simple. Ultimately, it's our system. If it works for us, that's great. We can argue the case, but really don't reinvent the wheel. We've been doing audits for over 2 decades inside there. We worked in many different verticals. It's our core business. As we help companies get certified to ISO standards, and we help them maintain it. And ultimately then we've tools to try help them do the job as well inside. So that's what I'm trying to share with you here, I suppose, is to see, can we help you keep your life simple as well? So we will be doing other topics as well inside there. Okay, we'll be covering risk assessment, incident reporting, investigation, non-conformance corrective action, OTPs. If you've other suggestions, put them in the comments. Let us know. Love to do them as well. We've also got sessions on contractor management over there, and we help companies in that area managing contractors. Particularly, we're helping them doing online training for contractors before they come on site, or even their own internal staff, and helping them managing work permits online as well. We work with big companies and small companies. We work in different verticals. So I suppose, no matter where you go, no matter what space you're in, the process for doing audit is the same in this context and the purpose of this webinar. So it's the same. You put in the building blocks and you just do it. Okay, so that's you don't have to fancy lots of pages and procedures and stuff like that. You just got to get people with good methodology and train people on that methodology. If you have questions, please fire them into the comments box, send them by email. As I said, we'd love to hear from you. It's great getting feedback on these. Any critiquing you can have is always welcome as well. And just any things, of course, we might have missed along the way, mention them as well, please. So over here, to register for the free MAI, MAI stands for Measure, Analyze and Improve, but to register for your own audit module, simply send an email to registrations@ehsoft.com. That's our software arm. And we look forward to helping you ace your audits really inside there. My own email is Dan@CheckNetwork as well. And you can find information on our websites as well and stuff like that. Really appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully we'll see you on another one of our webinars sometime soon as well. Okay. Thanks a million. Take care. Bye-bye.